There are no Canada Council grants in the USA. Sad. I'm going to rush through a bunch of this stuff because Act 1 and Act 2 covered the first 36 years of my life, and Act 3 is going to take care of the next 35. I lived in 4 areas of the United States. I lived in Seattle, Long Island, Boston, now New Jersey. So we're really just going to get right through those so I can spend a little time talking about what I'm most passionate about. Seattle. I was there for 6 years in the suburbs. No artist community to speak of, but there was an art gallery with a grand piano. I spent a lot of time playing that piano and taking impromptu art lessons, which was really great. So visual arts was my thing. And then after a while, I had to turn my attention to homeschooling my kids because there were just too many problems between the transition between the Canadian school system and the American school system. So that's what I did. Then we moved to Long Island. Long Island, home of the big duck. Also, home of the deer tick. I ended up getting Lyme's disease after a while, and that took care of homeschooling. Also, we were in the suburbs, no artist community, but I did find an artist. When I got better, I ended up working as that artist's assistant, and I put a lot of time again on the piano, mostly original composition, and on my own fine art. Then we moved to Boston. See how I'm moving right along? We were there for 14 years in the city, in the heart of an artist community. All the difference in the world. I did all kinds of stuff, including hosting a venue at my own house called Salon Sundays for gathering for all kinds of artists. It was fantastic. I also did a tremendous amount of performing. I had all that material I had written while I was on Long Island, so I was out performing. And as a result of that performing, I ended up with a ton of students. Teaching became my full-time job. I had between 30 and 35 students a week. I got so passionate about teaching that everything else I did just paled in comparison. Back at the University of Washington, when I studied homeschooling, there was a big emphasis on learn your child's learning style. And so we did go over the 4 basic learning styles: auditory, visual, read, write, kinesthetic, and techniques to deal with all of those. And I applied them very successfully with my own children in homeschooling. So later on in Boston, of course, I was using the same techniques with my students, except I had 10 times as many students, and third to 50% at any given point in time were considered special needs: blind, deaf, issues with fine motor control, attention deficit disorder, depth perception issues, or the autism spectrum. And I started learning so much from my students about how they perceived things. I started to journal lessons learned from the autism spectrum and other neurodiversities. And I'd like to share a couple of things from my journal right now. So this is the basics of the music staff: 5 lines and 4 spaces. And we put little dots for representing the notes, and people learn to read music that way. So this is neurotypically what we would see. Everything would be stable. This is how Alice's brain translates the musical staff. Now, in order to fully appreciate what she's going through, you're going to have to blink your eyes very, very fast, back and forth, close, open, close, and start moving your head from side to side very quickly as well. That is closer to what she's experiencing. Add some notes onto that, and you can understand how difficult it might be for her to read music. Here's a really interesting lesson I learned. On the left side, we're going to look at the neurotypical brain, mine, and on the right, we're looking at Chris's non-neurotypical brain. So if we go right across from one to the other, the letter A all by itself, I see it, Chris sees it. The letter A in a circle, like if I take that A and I just draw a circle around it, it disappears completely for Chris. He can no longer see that A. If I erase that circle and I draw a square around it, he sees it just as clearly as I do. Of course, all I want to do is the very best I possibly can for every single one of my students. Sadly, most of the materials and resources that are available are geared towards neurotypical. And I began experimenting with my neurodiverse students who let me know very quickly what did and did not work. Surprisingly, the things that worked with my neurodiverse students also worked extremely well with my neurotypicals. So I made my own music books and other resources and fine-tuned my holistic curriculum. And when I was done, I thought, my gosh, I wish I'd had this when I started out. And then I realized I absolutely need to make this available to other people. And that's what I've been working on for the past few years here in New Jersey. And once the pandemic hit, I added videos into the mix to make remote learning a bit easier as well. So that brings us up to date. And you know, I do believe that everything else in my life has been a stepping stone to what I'm doing right now.